Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of where Issei had both Ddraig's and Vritra's sacred gears. Issei finds out the truth about his reincarnation as a devil. What will Issei become, and what course of action he takes? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations and support the amazing author Helix Asmodeus for writing this story. Now let's get into part 1. You aren't running away, you bitch, roared Asahi to Yuma Rainer, who was trying to fly away with her wings. No, get away from me, you monster, shouted Rainer as Asahi took hold of her leg with his left hand covered in a crimson-red gauntlet and brought her closer to him. This is for Asia, you fallen crow. And with one massive punch, Issei punched her into the wall with his right hand. Rainer hit the wall with a lot of force to break it and fly out in the backyard of the church. With his opponent defeated, Issei fell to the ground only to be caught Kiba. Yo, Casanova, you're late, said Issei to Kiba. Sorry, Issei, President orders were to not intervene, said Kiba. Prez told you that, said a shocked Issei. Yes, I told Kiba not to intervene because I have full confidence that you could take her down on your own, said Rias as she entered the basement with her queen Aquino. And I must say excellent job, my adorable pawn, said Rias. RRR, it looks like Issei did a good job, said Aquino with a smile on her face and a lick of her lips that sent a little shiver down Issei's spine. Thanks, Aquino, said Issei to Aquino as she smiled happily. President, I brought the trash, said the small white-haired girl as she throws the unconscious form of the fallen angel on the floor in front of the group. Thank you, Kaneko. Now, Aquino, what do you say about waking up our little jest? Said Rias as she thanked her rook and asked her queen. Yes, President. Splash. Rainer was immediately awakened after the cold water hit her body. She looks around, the sight in front of her made her blood chill and her body to shake in fear. Oh, you are finally awake, I see. Well, introductions are in order. I'm Rios Gremory, the heiress of the Gremory clan, and these are my adorable servants. You already know my pawn, the others are my queen Aquino, rook Kaneko, and the knight Kiba. Not that was necessary because you're not going to live for long, said Rias to the shocked Draenor. Gremory, you think you won just because you're here with your servants? There are other fallen angels here with me. They will soon come to hell. They won't come to help you because my queen and I finished them off before coming here. I think you can recognize these feathers. You fallen can't see the difference in them from who they are, can't you? Rhea stopped the fallen in mid-sentence. Hera overtook Rainer as she saw feathers of her fallen comrades and allies Kaliner, Danasak and Middlet, in the hands of Chrisman-haired Princess of Destruction. Do you want to know why you lost to this boy, fallen angel Rainer? Asked Rias as she looks in the purple eyes of the shaking Rainer. The answer to that is very simple. His sacred gear isn't a twice critical. It's the booster gear, the gauntlet of the Red Dragon of Domination, Oka the Red Dragon Emperor, explained Rias as Rainer stared at her before her eyes turns to his say. Why yo, you are saying that the legendary and one of the most powerful sacred gears in the world is in the hands of this pervert? Shouted Rainer in disbelief. Yes, it is, and just as it was told, it has the power to double one's strength every 10 seconds. And even if given the time, he can boost himself to the power that can reach the power of the Mass and God, said Rios calmly. Now that explanation is over, it's time to wrap things up here and go home. But first, we need to return Twilight healing that you stole from cute little Asia. So prepare yourself, this is the end of you, fallen angel Rainer. You made a lot of trouble for my adorable little pawn and his friend. As she said that in her hand, black orb of destruction started together in volume. Just before she was to fire the magic that can destroy anything, a new voice made itself known. Me here, shouted a very unwelcome guest. Reed, save me, I will do anything, just get me out of here, shouted Rainer at Freed, who took time to think about it. Anything? I always wanted to have sex with a fallen angel. Yes, that would be a good price for saving you, said Fried in his relaxed tone. Don't be an idiot and save me already, you buffoon, yelled Rainer back as she was getting really angry at the laid-back priest while her life was at stake. No, sex. No, save. Even if I try, I can't beat all of them together, so I will leave you, Have fun, said Vritra as he looked around till he spotted Issei and had a large smile on his face. Issei, you have such beautiful power with you. I'm getting more and more excited about killing you. So when we see each other again, let's have a beautiful and romantic fight to the death. Okay, said Freed with a wink, making Issei shiver from clear bloodlust that the crazy priest has. Bye, have fun with her, said Freed before running away from the group. Now Rainer, it's time to finish this, said Rias now that the crazy priest was gone. Rainer for her part was trembling out of fear. Now that her one way out was gone, she looked around and saw her last bit of hope to get out of here alive. Issei, help me, please help me, Rainer said in her Yama voice that was even more pleading. Why should I help you? You deceived and killed me, and now you did the same to Asia. Why should I help you? Said Issei with his head down, hair hiding his eyes. Although he still felt bad for her, even though she did kill him, she was still his first girlfriend. Please, Issei, I will do anything just helps me. Together we can beat those devils, Rainer said with her eyes full of tears. She still had little hope that she can manipulate Issei into helping her. That's enough of you, fallen angel. I will not allow you to manipulate even more my cute adorable servant's emotions. Is that understood? Said Rias as she put her hand on Issei's shoulder, which made him a little calmer. Seeing this, Rainer understood what had happened and how Issei was back to the land of the living after she blasted a hole in his guts. She saw literally last chance of saving her. Issei, how can you trust her? Rainer said to Issei, who lifted his head to look at her like she had grown a second head. She is my master, she saved me, Issei simply stated. Oh, and how that came about? Asked Rainer now that she felt a little bit of her confidence coming back. Old Devil's tense at that full well how it came about, and that it would lead to catastrophe if Issei found out. After all, even the newly awakened Red Dragon Emperor can be a destructive force that can easily destroy Qua if he unlocks Juggernaut Drive and let his emotions run wild. Issei didn't see the devils behind him tense at the question and answered the question easily. If you must know, after you blown my guts and left me to die, President came and saved my life and revived me as her pawn. That was all that Rainer needed to press advantage on the devils and use Issei as her way out. Then why didn't she tell you earlier and save you when she had a chance before I killed you? Asked the Fallen. That simple sentence made the devils even tenser and left Issei for the loop. What are you blabbing about, Rainer? Asked the brunette in confusion, still not knowing what the Fallen in front of him is saying. It's simple, that redhead knows who and what I was doing here in her territory. She could have helped you too and easily stopped me, but she let you die so she can revive you to add you to her collection. Explained Rainer, now feeling that she only needs a little push and she would have his say on her side and get out. She knew that Issei was emotionally damaged after what happened between them, and she planned to take advantage of him now. Issei was known even more confused. It didn't make any sense to him. Why would Ray, as a girl he admires, leave him to die? Sure, he was the biggest pervert in history, but still, that didn't mean to just let him die. Issei just stood there with eyes wide and not knowing what was happening. But when he turned to Rias and the others, his was even more surprised that Rias and other looked like they were caught red-handed. Eyes, is she lying? The brunette asked. What I'm telling is truth, Issei. I may have betrayed your trust and killed you, but I never lied to you, unlike some people here. Rainer said to him in the most sincerest voice she could muster. I really loved and had a lot of fun on our date, but orders are orders. I hope you know that, right? Issei was now betrayed and heartbroken even more. He really didn't want to believe what the Fallen was saying, but a small part of him was telling him that what she was saying was true, and that she was right. WWHY? He asked in completely stunned and hesitant voice. It's very simple, Issei. It's the very same reason I had to kill you, because of the sacred gear you possess, said Rainer with a grin as she pointed with her hand at red gauntlet that was on Issei's left arm. Is it what she says the truth? There was no response. Akino, Kiba and Kaneko had their heads bowed down, having no answer and refusing to look into the brunette's eyes. That left Issei empty with his will broken, and now the anger and rage that was inside him started to release a lot of aura around unintentionally. He started to feel even more powerful with each second. He was getting angrier, and it started to showing to others. He was going to get answers why was he left to die, and why he was again being manipulated. Rias finally got over her shock, wanting to end this quickly before it goes even worse. She felt that the seals that she put on Issei on his revival to keep his full power at bay were start to break, and he was slowly getting to his full power. So she stepped in front of the broken form of Rainer with her demonic energy gathering in her hand. Fallen angel Rainer, you have done enough damage with your words and actions. You played with my adorable little pawn's emotions for the final time. Rias informed the fallen with a cold and dangerous voice. That was enough to break his Issei out of his thoughts. As he turned around, he was met with the sight that was telling him that if he doesn't do something, he wasn't going to get any answers. Gaius begun Reynad when she felt that her doom was at hand. As the demonic energy in Ria's hand grows, Reynad tried one last time to make him do anything. Issei, in that moment, Issei finally decided to stop this, and he stood in front of the fallen with his hands spread out, surprising everyone present. What are you doing? Move so I can end this filth, said a surprised Rias. No one is going to die anymore tonight, Issei said as his head was down with his hair covering his eyes from everyone. Issei, please, Rias told him softly as she moved towards him and tried to put her hand on his shoulder. Don't touch me, yelled Issei as he was starting to shake in rage as his aura started to grow more powerful. Devils were in complete shock. They were in shock that their second-year friend and comrade had snapped even more at the girl that he was idolizing. They say please move aside so we can end this and we can talk later, okay? Rias told Issei in the smoothest and tenderest voice that she could muster. Shut up, roared Issei, lifting his head, showing the devils has green narrow eyes like a snake that were full of the fury and rage, with his aura increasing in volume that made all of them step back. Now before anything else happens, I'm going to get some answers, is that understood? He told them in the voice that was full of power and authority. But seeing that no one spoke or confirmed anything made him even angrier and even closer to lashing out at them. I said, is that understood? He roared as he unleashes even more aura, and the church began to shake with his voice and aura. Seeing this, all of them nodded in fear of what may happen if he was refused. To refuse an angry, pissed-off dragon is like begging for death in a most gruesome way. Good. Now then, what was the real reason you revived Marius? Asked Issei in cold and dangerous tone that promised pain and death if he wasn't given the real reason. I was banking on you that you have a powerful sacred gear, answered the Red Hat. And you would have left me for dead if I hadn't had it, he asked. I? Rias, yelled Issei, seeing her trying to think of another way to answer him. And no. Issei's eyes hardened and narrowed, even more still green color radiate from his eyes, making them even more dangerous. With that done, Issei turned to Rainer, who was now even more scared for her life. She thought that she was stronger than Pawn, but that was in an instant shot down when she took a look in his eyes at her to try anything and promising her instant death. Rias? Issei told to the stunned red-haired heiress as she was still frozen in shock and fear from the power he emitted. Why yes, Issei, asked the heiress. You do have some evil pieces with you, right? He didn't even bother to turn around. Rias stiffened at his question. Yeah, I have, but as you were going to reincarnate this little crow over here, is that clear? Issei ordered Rias. He said both Rias and Rainer at what Issei said. Rias? Issei threatened. Why yes, Rias quickly said in fear. Hey! Don't I have a say in this? Rainer said in anger. That was enough to make Issei took her arm and yank her toward him. Her face a few centimeters from his. You can choose. Servant I. Your choice, Rainer. Because right now I'm so little away from snapping you like a twig. You did kill 2 innocent people, Asia and I don't want someone like Asia to be revived and serve someone who lies and deceives others to become her servants. Told her Issei in cold voice as he pointed to Rias at the end of his sentence. Rias wanted to argue because her pride was hurt, but green radiant eyes prevented her from doing it. Rias, Rainer here now possesses Asia's sacred gear Twilight Healing, and she already has good control of it. Plus, she will benefit both sides. Hey, I didn't agree to this, yelled the fallen angel, trying to get away from the angry Issei. You had your chance to choose. Right now nothing is stopping me from destroying you and ripping you to shreds for what you did to Asia. Choose now death or servitude. This is your last chance, told Issei, his green eyes boreholes and purple ones of Rainer. Rainer was left with one real choice, and that was servitude, so she just nodded to Issei and stopped trying to pull herself off him and surrendered. Seeing this, Issei just nodded and turned to Rias. Do it. It was all done quickly. It didn't take any more than a few minutes for the procedure to be done, and Rainer to become half fallen, half devil. Good. Now all of you get out, I will see you when I feel like it. Ordered Issei as he took a few steps towards the fallen form of the nun. Everyone else quickly left, not wanting to get an angry dragon even angrier, and feeling his wrath firsthand. Asia, I swear to you now I won't be late ever again. I will change my ways for the better, that I promise you, and I hope that I can see you in heaven if I ever get there. Issei swore to the body of Asia as if she was still there. Sorry for not being there for you, said Issei as he now had tears in his eyes. When he was about to leave, he saw a purple light shining. He looked at the direction of the light and saw a box in the corner of the room. Issei headed over to the box and opened it to only have a violet light blinding him. Moments later he felt something entering his body, forcing him to lose balance and fall to the ground. Moments later Issei opened his eyes and looked around and saw that nothing has changed. He looked at the box and saw it was empty. He looked confused but decided to shrug it off and walk away. Moments later, a green light shined and a man with black hair came out and stood in front of the lifeless body of Asia. He placed the evil piece on the lifeless body. Nothing happened. The man gritted his teeth and left in frustration. After all the events at the church, as he was currently home. It was late in the night, and his parents were already sleeping. He was now laying on his bed thinking on how to get stronger. There are multiple problems he needs to get out of his way first before he truly can get stronger. First is his perversion that caused him to be easily manipulated. He needs to find a way for him to keep his perversion and control to make sure that no one can manipulate him ever again. Second is his close to none magical reserve. He doesn't understand why he has so little magic reserve, but he hopes to find a solution for it or else he will stay weak. He decided to go tomorrow to an isolated area near the mountains to train and increase his physical strength. When he was done planning, he decided to go to bed and rest for the day. Tomorrow will be a rough day, but he has a plan to convince his parents to send a bit of money for snacks. He closed his eyes to sleep and let his body relax after releasing a good amount of aura. Mindscape. Issei was currently in his mindscape. He was surrounded by fire. Confused why he was dreaming about being surrounded by flames. Before he could react, the flames started to morph, and the flames soon changed to a red celestial dragon with green emerald eyes. The dragon looked with interest at the boy and decided to speak. Issei, hi, do we meet again? The voice said. The voice was one of pure power and demanded respect. Issei's body shivered by the voice of the dragon. Who are you? Issei asked with a little fear in his voice. The dragon noticed this. It has appeared that you have forgotten me. I am the one that gave you the power to defeat that crow. The dragon said, making Issei's eyes widen in realization. Here, Ddraig, the Red Dragon Emperor. Issei said, making the dragon nod, but before the dragon could reply, a thick black fog surrounded both Issei and Ddraig. Issei was confused at why this is happening. Ddraig, on the other hand, was in trance. He recognized this power. Moments later, the black fog disappeared and a black serpent with 7 purple tentacles coming from his back stood next to Ddraig. The serpent had violet-colored eyes and had a dark aura around it. Before Issei could say something, Ddraig decided to question the surprise visit of the dragon. Vritra, what are you doing here and how did you get here? Ddraig said with surprise and curiosity. The last time they both saw each other was 1,000 of years ago, and if Ddraig remembered correctly, his soul was split into multiple sacred gears. The answer to your second question is that I have no idea. I just woke up, and to answer your first question, I came here because I sensed you here as well. I only grew interested in your host. The newly introduced Vritra said to Ddraig, who nodded in understanding. Issei was confused on how he had another dragon inside of him. Both dragons looked at Issei with interest, and Ddraig decided to talk to his host. "I say hi to you, what will you do now?" Ddraig asked Issei, who looked at the mighty dragon with confused look, but soon he realized what the dragon was getting at and said, "I want to become strong to make sure that no one will manipulate me," Issei said with determination. Both dragons were impressed. Even after too many betrayals, he still had the courage and willpower to become stronger. This is the right attitude for people who want to become stronger, and both dragons were planning to support him. "That is a good attitude, and I find you very interesting. I, the heavenly dragon Ddraig, will help you in your quest to become stronger," Ddraig exclaimed and turned to look at Vritra and waited for his answer. "Their courage and determination is very admirable. I have decided that I, the prison evil dragon king, Vritra, will aid you in your adventure," Vritra said, making smile. Suddenly the mindscape is starting to shake, making the dragons understand what is happening. "It appears that you are about to wake up," Ddraig said. "Yes. It has appeared that way, but don't worry. Both of us will help you to get stronger," Vritra said, making Issei nod. Moments later, Issei vision went white. Reality. Issei woke up and felt dizzy. "What a strange dream," he whispered to himself. "That was not a dream, partner." The voice of Ddraig was heard, making Issei jump, but soon he realized who it was and he relaxed. He looked at his left hand and saw emerald green gem on it. "It has appears you have awakened. What is your course of action?" The voice of Vritra was now heard. Issei thought already had a plan and answered the dragon. "I have a plan in mind," Issei said, making the dragons nod. Issei went to his parents and told them that he wanted to go on camp to help with his perversion. His parents happily paid for the camp, but they never knew that it never went to the camp. When Issei received the money, he prepared a duffel bag with extra clothes and bought food and drinks and headed for the mountains. When he arrived at the mountain, he climbed to the top and found it very isolated. It was perfect for to train here. "Finally I made it," Issei said with a smile. "Now we have a place to train. I will tell you about your training for the next 3 months," Ddraig said, making Issei nod. "Yes, Ddraig and I have found a way for you to give your body an upgrade," Vritra said. Issei was confused what he went, but Ddraig was about to explain. "What Vritra is trying to tell is that we found a way to make your body stronger, but there is a cost," Ddraig said, making Issei raise an eyebrow. "What do you mean cost?" Issei said. "The cost is take away the rest of your humanity and make you a dragon-devil hybrid," Vritra said, making Issei's eyes widened. What can you really do something like that?" Issei asked. "Normally we couldn't, but Vritra discovered a way. By using the spell that is inside of your evil pieces, he can safely transfer his and mine essence without your body taking permanent damage," Ddraig said, making Issei nod in understanding. "Not only will you become a dragon, you also gain enormous boost in your 6 senses to the point that your brain can progress in nanoseconds and gain a godlike affinity for both fire, shadows and darkness. Not to mention your close to none magical reserve will increase the top tier high class," Vritra informed Issei, making Issei nod in excitement. "The only drawback is that your body will be in a lot of pain for a while," Ddraig said, making Issei nod. "I don't care how much it hurts. Let's get this over with," Issei said with determination, making the dragons nod. Issei felt a sharp pain in his chest and soon, before he could scream in agony, he fell unconscious. Then days later. Days has passed for Issei, and his appearance has changed. His skin got a little darker. His hair was mostly black with red highlights. Issei slowly opened his eyes, but the normally brown were gone and were replaced with now his left eyes green and his right eyes violet. Issei blinked a couple of times, but was suddenly hit with multiple sounds and smells, making him hold his face to lessen the pain. A minute has passed and it appears that the pain was mostly gone, but he could hear and smell everything around him. "It has appeared that you're awake, and the transformation went without a hitch," Ddraig's voice was heard, making Issei nod. "Glad to head. So what is next on the agenda?" asked the Red Dragon. "While you were unconscious, me and Vritra have made a training agenda for the next 80 days," Ddraig said, making nod in acceptance. "What is first?" asked. "First, you need to learn on how to control your body and reflexes. That will take maximum 10 days. Seconds is your elemental control. That will also take 20 days for each element, and we will help increase your magic reserve. By the way, the previously close to nothing magic reserve has been increased to high-class devil. Third is to learn how to properly use your sacred gears. That will we use the last 30 days for. Also, we will continue training you in your mindscape, so brace yourself because you will be training like your life depend on it. Vritra stated, making Issei gulp a bit. 80 days later. The last 80 days were a complete hell, was trained day in day out, and even in his mindscape the dragons didn't go easier on him. But it paid, as often became several levels stronger than his original strength. He leaned on how to use his new body, including on how to use his new dragon senses and his dragon form. He has 1 pair of dragon wings, and has 4 dark black with red highlights tentacles. He learned on how to master his fire and shadow powers. Both dragons stated that his same mastery of his elements are close when both dragons were still in their prime. His magic reserve has increased to high-class devil to ultimate class. He also mastered on how to use the boosted gear and Prison of Ruin to the best of their abilities. Ddraig said that Issei was equal in strength with Alesia, the strongest female Red Dragon Emperor, and is getting closer to Belzerd, the strongest Red Dragon Emperor. They achieved balance breaker for both sacred gears and even create a fusion balance breaker called Crimson Prison Balance Breaker. But the power was too much for Issei and can only use the form for 1 minute. Ddraig also told Issei about the Juggernaut drive, but also with the risk. Issei understood that he can only use it as a last resort. All in all, the training was a massive success, and currently Issei was heading towards school. He paid a visit to his parents, and told them that the trip was successful. Issei also cleaned his room and got rid of the posters and magazines that he got. Issei was walking towards the school. He received stares of jealousy from the boys and stares of lust from the girls. Normally, Issei would take full advantage of this, but with the help of his dragons and Elsha, who helped in his magic training, he got his perversion under control. When he entered his class, he saw that he was the first to arrive and sat down on his desk. Moments later, the class was filled, and the teacher walked in only to see all the students looking at the boy with black and red hair, who was looking outside the window without a care in the world. "Are you lost? I haven't heard that we would receive a new student today." The teacher was confused. The teacher was a blonde-haired woman who looked like she was from the West. She also had blue eyes, and her outfit showed her impressive breast. Issei looked at the teacher and grinned. "Ow, have you forgotten who I am, miss?" "The levies dotted is me, Issei Hayata," Issei said, and mentally counting down what the class yelled out, except for a girl with black hair and violet eyes who was observing Issei every move. "Now I see. My apologies, Mr. Hayata. I have heard that you went on a camp, so it is no problem, but you should go after class to the student council to pick up your books and notes that were left behind," the teacher said with a blush. When class ended, Issei stood up and went to the door, only to dodge 2 punch heading his way. When he did, he saw his former friends on the floor head first. This made Issei sign and turned around and walked away. Issei walked in the hallway but was stopped by a voice he doesn't want to hear ever again. It was his first girlfriend, Rainer. "Oh well, guess who came back after 80 days of camp," Rainer said in head uniform. Issei looked at her bored. "What do you want, Rainer?" Issei said with a sigh. "He just want to go home and do some training. It is Yuma when we are at school, don't you forget it?" Yuma hissed. Issei raised an eyebrow. "Why are you talking to me? We aren't friends," said, and released a little bit of his aura. The air got warmer and Rainer started to sweat. She shivered and remembered the time back at the church. "Rias asked me to bring you to the club room," Rainer said. Issei stopped releasing his aura, making Rainer release a sign of relief. "I don't care what she wants. I will complete my normal devil jobs, but she doesn't control me in any shape or form, so tell her that and leave me alone," Issei said with a sharp tone, making Rainer nod and left him. Issei felt someone watching and looked behind him out of the window, and there was nothing making him suspicious. He used his shadow powers and felt a shadow of a person. He smirked inwardly at his ability to track people even if they are hiding. He also could hear of Vritra smirking at Issei, mastery of his powers. Issei pretended to ignore his stalker, and when he walked by a wall, he looked around making sure no one saw him and quickly entered the shadows. That was close. the invisible person tough to itself. The person noticed that Issei was looking in his or her direction. It followed Issei but was shocked to lose sight of him. The mystery person was sure that Issei was just here a moment ago. The person suddenly felt a presence creeping up behind it, and turned around also to be met with a fist right in its stomach. The invisible person fell to the ground and her eyes slowly closing. It only saw the smirk of Issei Haidu. The body of the invisible person who was unconscious started to glow, and before Issei was a girl with auburn-colored hair, and she wore a school uniform. Issei was surprised to see his mysterious stalker being a cute girl. But before Issei could do anything, Vritra spoke. "What are you planning to do with this girl? I want to know what she followed me," Issei said, and carried the body of the girl together to his home. Both of his parents told him that they were taking a trip. Well, it was still school, so Issei made a shadow clone to pretend he was still present. The auburn-haired stalker of Issei Hibu is currently sleeping on his couch. Issei was reading a book while waiting for his stalker to wake up. It took a while, but finally the auburn-haired girl started to wake up. What happened?" she whispered to herself, not realizing that her target sitting right next to her. "I knocked you out. That is what happened." The voice of Issei Haida was heard, making the auburn-haired stalker turn around and look at the boy. She had to admit that he was way prettier than the last time she saw him. "Why am I here?" she said while jumping off the couch and took a battle stance. Issei wasn't affected by this and gestured her to calm down. "Calm down. I brought you here so we could talk. So can you please introduce yourself and tell me why you are stalking me?" Issei said with a soft smile, making the girl blush. She decided to trust him and sat down back on the couch. "I am Chelsea. I don't have a name because I am an orphan. I worked for an assassination group called Orberg, but recently the group got shot down because most of us got killed by some fallen angels. I followed you because you are the Red Dragon Emperor and hope to stay with your side, but it appears you are part of the Devil faction," the newly introduced Chelsea said with a weak smile. "I see then. So what are you gonna do now?" Issei asked Chelsea. She, on the other hand, looked at him strangely. "Are you not gonna give me to the devils?" she asked him, making him hold his head in confusion. "Why would I?" Issei asked, confused what this girl meant. "I am an assassin and I wield the sacred gear. Giving me to the devils will boost their power," she answered, making Issei nod finally in understanding. "I am not planning to give you to the devils. You are free to leave if you want. Just make sure you don't become a problem for me," Issei said, making Chelsea shocked. "But why?" she asked him. "Issei is way more powerful than her and can force her to submit to him with ease. Not to forget that doesn't have allies or a faction for backup. I am not in the greatest relationship with the devils," Issei stated. Chelsea was confused at what he meant. "I see then, can I ask you a question?" she said nervously. "This is a giant risk, but she needs you to take the chance and hope for the best." "Sure," Issei answered. "Can you let me stay here?" "I don't have any money or a home to stay," she said nervously. She was expecting him to deny her, but was surprised when she felt his hand on her shoulder. She looked at him and saw a gentle smile. "You can stay here as long as you want," Issei said with a gentle smile, making her blush. Issei knew that she was telling the truth and he didn't felt any deceit from her. So he knew that he could trust her. "Really?" she asked in shock. She smiled brightly when she saw him nod, and she couldn't help herself and hugged him. Issei was shocked and couldn't help himself and hugged her back. After a minute they broke the hug. Issei saw that Chelsea had a tear on her cheek. He took a tissue and wiping her cheek. She blushed at his actions but didn't do anything. "Thank you, Issei," she said with a smile. Issei smiled back and patted her head. Issei gave Chelsea the spare room and called his parents. He lied to them, saying that Chelsea is from the camp he joined and decided to visit Kwa, and offered her a place to stay. The rest of the day went smoothly. Issei's parents came back home and got to meet Chelsea. They immediately liked her and got to know her. After dinner, Issei decided to call it a night and go to sleep, but before he could close his eyes, a red magic circle with the crest of the Gremory clan appeared, and seconds later Rias Gremory came out of it. Issei was shocked why Rias suddenly decided to visit. He noticed that she was in a hurry, and seconds later he saw her undressing herself. Rias, what are you doing here? Issei said, shocked. Sorry, Issei, but I don't have much time and Kiba won't do it because of his pride as a knight. So you are the only option, she said in a desperate tone. Issei started to get pissed at her actions and pushed her away. What? Am I not your type? She said, a little bit offended, but before Issei could reply, a white magic circle appeared with the crest of the House of Gremory. Putavec came a silver-haired woman with silver eyes. She wore a French-made outfit, and what Issei could tell that she is powerful, extremely powerful. He had no doubt that she could beat him in his balance breaker with ease, maybe even his fusion balance breaker. But before could say anything, Rias spoke. Vritra, who sent you here? It is my brother. Father, came you here by your own choice? She asked to the silver-haired maid who kept her stoic face. All three of them, my lady. Why have you lowered yourself to this low-born? Graphia asked Rias, who stood up and crossed her hands. Issei, on the other hand, didn't know to be offended or to be glad for Graphia stopping Rias. Low-born or not, I chose who I want to give my purity, and I don't care that you are the queen of my brother, peerage, but I won't tolerate such disrespect against my servants, she said with an authority tone. Issei just realized something. Rios has a brother, and the maid is his queen. He needs to catch up with those facts. I see. Very well, my lady. But you are the next in line to the House of Gremory. I advise you to cherish your body and your purity. Gracia advised and turned to Issei, who showed no emotion whatsoever the moment she arrived. This sparked an interest in Gracia. Why? She could clearly sense the power difference between Issei and Rias, and could tell that he could beat her with close to no effort. My apologies, sir. My name is Graphia Lucifuge, and I am the head mate of the Gremory household. We will be out of your way now, Graphia said and gestured for Rias to follow. You don't mind that I asked my queen to join us? Rias asked, and the maid nodded. Of course, it is only proper for a king to be accompanied by her queen. The priestess of thunder can come, Graphia said, making Rias nodded, and she turned around to face and went to give him a kiss, but was surprised when he blocked the kiss with his hand. I appreciated that you don't touch me, Rias. We are not in on the best of terms, Issei said with no emotion at all. Graphia was shocked to hear that but didn't show it, but she will keep that piece of info for later. Rias wanted to say something but was stopped by Graphia. My lady, we need to hurry. We don't want to let your parents wait, do we? Graphia said, making Rias sign and nod in acceptance. She and Graphia left Issei with a magic circle. Issei was glad that she was gone, and finally could go to sleep. Tomorrow morning, Issei woke up early and did some early exercises that both his dragons recommend doing every day of the week. After the morning workout, he made some breakfast. Simple cereal with milk. When he was eaten, he heard someone walking down the stairs, and moments later Chelsea appeared in her nightgown. Issei blushed slightly at the sight, and luckily for him Chelsea was too tired to see him blushing. Good morning, Issei, she said, a bit sleepy. Good morning, Chelsea. What are your plans for today? Issei asked her, making her think. I don't have plans really, she said awkwardly, making Issei think, and soon he got an idea. Do you want to go to school with me? He asked her. She was shocked. Really? She asked him, hoping that it wasn't a joke. Yep. I doubt that would be a problem, and if the devils try something I will protect you, Issei said. But before he could do anything, Chelsea tackled him and hugged the life of him. Thank you, she said while holding Issei in a hug. Issei, on the other hand, patted her back. It is no biggie. Now I have to go to school. See you later and don't cause any trouble, he said with a wink, making her blush, and he left for school. When he arrived there, he received the same stares as yesterday. The girls looked at him with lust and the boys with jealousy. When he entered his class, everything went as usual. When lunch came, he stood up and left the classroom but was stopped by his old friends. The bold one in glasses. You say, where have you been? The bold one said, making a say sign. The way he said bluntly, and turned around and walked out of the classroom. When he walked to the grass field, he sat down and opened his lunch he prepared. He took a bite and enjoyed the silence that the place provided. Moments later, he felt a presence approaching him. He turned around and saw Keno standing there. Issei, I have orders from Rias to bring you to the club room, she said with a little hint of fear in her voice. Issei noticed this and stood up. Normally she was taller than him, but now he was a couple inches taller than her. This action made her sweat a bit and a little bit aroused. I already told Rainer this and I will say this again. Let Rias know that I will do my devil duties, but don't think for a second that she owns me. Are we understood? He said while coming closer to the point. Their faces were inches away of each other. Akino became so aroused that she was sure she needed to change her undergarments after this. Azazel noticed this as well and decided to play a little with the S&M addicted queen. If you are a good girl I will reward you, but if you are a bad girl then I have to punish you. He whispered in her ear, making her face the color of his balance breaker, and she quickly nodded and walked to the club room. Issei smirked, but before he could do anything else a voice was heard behind Issei. Nice one, Issei-chan. The voice of Chelsea reached his ear, and he soon turned around and saw Chelsea with his lunch box empty. Issei grew a thick mark and made a mental note to hide his food from Chelsea. Chelsea, what a surprise, and why have you eaten my lunch? Issei said with fake smile, making Chelsea grew a cat-like smirk and grew an innocent smile. My apologies, Issei-kun, I couldn't help myself, she said and stood up, and before he could reply, he felt someone teleporting inside the club room. He sensed fire inside of the club room, but it soon vanished. But before he could say anything, Vritra spoke. That signature belongs to a phoenix, but this one is demonic in nature. Vritra spoke, making eyes nod. Chelsea looked confused at the situation and decided to ask him about it. Hey Eyes-kun, why are staring at the club room? She asked him, making him look at her. I sensed the element of fire inside the club room and my dragon informed me that it was a phoenix, Issei said, making Chelsea nod. I see. I should have guessed that Ddraig could sense other creature made of fire, Chelsea said, making Issei look at her and decided to play along. Yeah. Sure, he said, making her look at him suspicious, but she shrugged it off. So what are gonna do about Riser Phoenix? Chelsea asked, making Issei look at her with a confused expression. Riser? He asked Chelsea, who gave him a weird look and immediately made the connection that Issei doesn't know about Ria's fiancé. You don't know. Riser Phoenix is the fiancé of Ria's Gremory, and she had been trying to break the engagement by recruiting strong members, she said, making Issei and the dragons inside of his mind shocked, and a moment later Issei began to laugh, making her shocked at his sudden outburst. I never knew that. This is gonna be fantastic, he said while trying to hold back his laughter but failed. He started rolling on the grass and wheezing. Issei, why are laughing? Your master needs you to break that engagement, and you are laughing like you are planning to make her suffer, Chelsea said in a confused tone. Issei regained his control and started to inhale and exhale, and wiping away the tears. Oh yeah, you don't know why I find this funny. Listen here, Chelsea, this info rather you keep for yourself, understand? He asked her in a serious tone, making her shiver and nod. Issei explained everything about the fallen angel, the date, and the church. He kept the info about he obtaining another sacred gear for himself because that was his trump card. Saying that Chelsea was in shock would be an understatement. Now she understands why he refuses to help Rias, and she couldn't blame him. So what are you planning? She asked him, making Issei lie back on the grass and close his eyes. Nothing. I won't help that red-haired bitch with her problems, and I couldn't care less what happens to her, he said, making Chelsea nod and sit back on the grass, and both of them started to make a little small talk. Rios POV, club room. 5 minutes ago. I was currently sitting on my desk waiting for my queen to arrive with my pawn. The rest of my servants are sitting on the couch. I asked her to bring Issei when Graphia came by and told me that Riser was on his way. After a minute the door opened to only reveal my queen with red cheeks, but no Issei. I grew a thick mark but decided to punish him later. Mistress, where is your pawn? Graphia asked me, making me sign in disappointment. My pawn doesn't always obey my orders, but don't worry, he isn't needed in this meeting, I informed Graphia, making her nod. Shall I explain the current situation, my mistress? She asked me, making me shake my head. No, I will. Everyone, I must inform you that I am on, but before I could finish my sentence, an orange magic circle appeared and flames came out of it. Out of the magic circle a man appeared. He had blonde hair. He looked like he was in his mid-20s. He wore a red suit with the top loose. He wore a smug face. "This is Riser Phoenix, third son of the Phoenix family and my fiancé. And Riser has arrived," Riser said and turned around to face me. "Riser, let catch up," he said, and both of us sat down on the couch and my servant stood by the window. "Who is this douchebag?" asked Rainer. "This gentleman is Riser Phoenix, third son of the Phoenix family, and the Lady Rias' Gremory fiancé," Grafia informed Rainer, who had a shocked face. "Riser has shocked Rias, my dear. You haven't told them about Riser," he said in the third person, making everybody, including Grafia, want to facet them. They sat down on the couch and Aquino brought them tea. He took a sip and said, "This tea is fantastic," he said to Aquino, who had a fake smile. "Thank you, sir," she said, but everybody except Riser knew that was fake. He started to touch my hair and my legs, making me lose my temper. "Stop it, Riser, I will not marry you," I said, and stood up, making Riser do the same. We continued this argument until eventually Riser started to power up and his eyes turned orange. Well, I do the same with my eyes turning red. "Riser doesn't care that I have to incinerate all your servants. Riser will bring you to the underworld," he stated, and generated more fire. Luckily, Grafia quickly interfered with releasing 5% of her power, making the two high-class devils stop and look at her with fear, and their bodies shivering from the pressure. "There is no need for incineration. My Lady Rias, your family has found a way for you to cancel the marriage contract if you desire," Grafia informed while dropping her aura, making both sign and relieve. "Even Riser knows it is a deep wish to challenge the second strongest female in the devil faction. I had assumed that my family would do this." "What is the other way, Grafia?" Rias asked. "A rating game," she informed them, making Riza smirk victorious. "Riza has played a decent amount of rating games and was seen a prodigy," he said with pride. "Pretty arrogant. Only adult devils can participate in a writing game," Aquino thought herself. "My lady, what do you chose?" Grafia asks me. "I accept," Rias said with confidence. Riser started to laugh. "Rias, my dear, you really think you can defeat my cute servants?" Riser asked and snapped his fingers. Another orange magic circle appeared and 15 girls came out of it. "I will obliterate you, Riser," she said with confidence. "Very well then, I accept the challenge. But if you lose, you shall marry me immediately," Riser said and snapped his fingers and teleported away. "Very well, my lady, I will inform your family about your decision," Grafia said and teleported away. Little did they knew that Issei sent a shadow clone to listen in on the conversation. Grafia knew about the shadow clone and decided to not tell them because she knew that it was from Issei, because she sensed Issei aura from the clone. "Very well, let's go look for my pawn," she said with authority. She was pissed that Issei disobeyed her orders and was sure to make him pay. Like hell she can. With Issei. Issei was currently walking home with Chelsea and sent a clone in to fill in on class. When he sensed the Phoenix Devil in the clubroom, he decided to send one there as well because his curiosity got the better of him. And Vritra said that only another shadow or darkness user can sense another shadow or darkness user. But Vritra forgot to say that people of a certain level of power could sense them too. "It appears my dear master has a problem," he said sarcastically in his mind, making both dragons nod. "What are planning to do?" Vritra asked, making Issei think. He doesn't want to help the red-haired bitch, but he couldn't refuse to fight because it can be seen as traitorous behavior. But luckily his angel has arrived and it took the form of a red celestial dragon. "I have an idea. How about I knock Issei out for a couple of days and make an excuse that he close an evolution in his gear? It is technically not a lie because I sense Issei getting close to achieving something, but I don't know what yet," Ddraig said, making Issei nod in his mind and thank Ddraig for the perfect solution. "Yes, let's do that," he said, making both dragons agree. Issei suddenly felt someone tugging on his clothes, making him look at Chelsea, who had a pout. "Are you even listening?" she asked him, making Issei laugh a bit. "Sorry, no. I had a conversation with my dragon and I got distracted," he said. "I see. Can I know what about?" she asked him, making him sweat a bit. He wants to hide the fact that he has a second sacred gear, but the clones he create were only possible because he has the prison of ruin. I just find out that Rias has a raiding game with Riza Phoenix in the future. But because our bad relationship, I don't want to help her. So Ddraig found a solution. He said he can bring me in a coma for a couple of days, so I don't have to participate in the raiding game. He said, making Chelsea nod, and he hoped that Chelsea won't ask how he got the info, but fate had to fuck with him. How do you know that she had raiding game with Riser? She asked him, making him curse his luck. Over the months I can create Dragonite clones. They are clones made out of my aura and do my bidding, he lied at her. Both dragons were impressed at Issei lie, and luckily for him Chelsea believed it. I see that is impressive, but why send one? She asked him, making him shrug. I got curious, that is why I send one, he said nonchalantly, but when they got close to Issei house his anger grew. He could sense the grimy bitch and his peerage there. He quickly looked at Chelsea and said, "They are inside my home," he said, and she nodded and turned invisible. Issei could still sense her, but it was only because of his dragon instincts. When he entered his house, he let Chelsea slip in behind him, and he went to the living room where he saw the red-haired bitch sitting on the couch drinking tea. Akino, Kiba, Rainer and Kaneko were all standing near the window. Luckily, both his parents went to buy groceries, so they weren't home for a couple of hours. Well, where have you been, Ice?" Rias asked with a sweet smile, while releasing her aura. Issei raised an eyebrow in response and released his aura, making the other people present, including Chelsea, start sweating and shivering at the sheer power and heat coming from Issei. "I would prefer you call me Issei. Only my friends can call me that, and you all are far from it." "So what are you guys doing here?" he said in a cold tone, making all shiver. The pressure made them think that there was apex predator ready to hunt them down. Ikena was blushing as well because she was a masochist. Both Issei and Chelsea saw, making both smirk. "I ordered you to come to the club room, but you disobeyed my orders, and for that, you must be punished," she said with an authoritative voice, but that was short-lived. When Isaiah raised an aura, they only fell to the church, the aura of pure domination. Everyone, including Chelsea, started to sweat even harder, and the weaker ones of the peerage were dropped to their knees. The only one that worked were Rias and Akino and Chelsea, but both Rias and Akino were about to lose their strength, but suddenly the white magic circle from yesterday appeared again. At the same mate appeared, and she wasn't affected in the slightest. But she sure felt the aura of domination, and sweat dropped a bit. Issei just noticed the arrival of the maid and lowered his aura, making everyone who was forced on their knees able to stand again. Grafia looked around and saw Ares and the rest of the orcs sweating and breathing heavily, and saw Issei looking bored at her rival, making her more suspicious. She knows that is the Red Dragon Emperor, and a strong one. But she also sensed anger and malice coming from him. Like he doesn't want to be part of Ria's peerage. This raised the question if Rias has done anything to anger Is. If she did, then they will be hell go pay. Nobody wants to have a berserk dragon on the loose, and especially when he enters the Juggernaut drive, because frankly all four Satans combined cannot defeat a heavenly dragon. That fact made Grafia shiver and hope that her mistress has not done something stupid, and she made sure to talk with Issei when this is done. Rias saw Grafia and thanked her in her mind. She straightened herself and said, "Grafia, what are you doing here?" she asked the maid, gaining her attention. "I came here to inform you, my lady, that the raiding game will be held in 10 days. I assume you came to inform your pawn about the situation at hand?" she asked Rias, who gained a smirk. She had found a way to trap her pawn. "Yes, I came here to inform my pawn about the current situation, but it appears he still disobeys my orders, and I came here to punish him," Rias said with a smug grin, making Issei, Chelsea and both Ddraig and Vritra angry. "What a coward," Vritra said, making me nod in agreement. "I cannot agree with you more, Vritra," Ddraig said with a nod, making grit his teeth. Luckily, Grafia noticed this and saw the pure hatred omitting for and quickly stepped in. "I don't think that is wise, my lady. It has appears that your pawn shows great amount of hate towards you and the rest of your peerage. I suggest you leave him alone before you make him go berserk and face power that even the four great Satans combined power cannot take down," Grafia informed, making Rias look at her with a shocked expression. She thought that her brother was the strongest. But to hear that someone is stronger than the 4 Satans combined is unheard of. But she doesn't know how strong the heavenly dragons were so soon that her brother was stronger. But boys, she was wrong. Who? She tried to say anything but was cut off by Grafia. My lady, you should go home for the day, she said with an icy tone, making her shiver and nod, and teleported with the rest of the peerage away. Grafia signed in delight. She will never say this or loud, but she found it Ria's way to prideful and arrogant. But because of her brother, she cannot say anything. She turned around to face Issei, who still had his bored expression on. She noticed the person hiding and decided to call her out. You can come out now, she said, catching both Issei and Chelsea off guard. She deactivated her sacred gear and revealed herself to Grafia. It has appeared that you spotted my friend. So what are you still doing here? Issei said with a cold tone, making Grafia raise an eyebrow. This confirmed that Rias has done something immensely stupid. I wanted to talk with you. And who is this? She said and pointed to Chelsea. This is my friend Chelsea, and from what you can see she is just human, but she does know about the supernatural. Issei said, making Grafia nod. It is not surprising that more and more humans come to know about the supernatural world because of the existence of sacred gears. Very well then. May I ask a question? She asked him, making Issei look at her and nod. Why do you show so much anger and hate towards your master? She asked him, making Issei sign. That is a matter between her and me, he stated bluntly, making the maid more curious. She wanted to know that Issei isn't planning to kill Rias. As handmaid of the Grimmery household and queen of Lady Rias' older brother, I want to know why you show such anger and hate towards her, and if you are a potential threat, she said with authority and released her aura. The aura made Chelsea drop on her knees and started to breathe heavily, and the whole building started to shake. Eyes raised his aura in response, and to Grafia's surprise it matches her. Her current aura was of ultimate class level, and she knew that Eyes became a devil only 3 months ago because Rias told her, or in her case, brag about it. Eyes stared in Grafia's eyes. His heterochromia eyes stared right into her silver eyes, making her shiver for a second, but she compassed herself. Poor Chelsea couldn't take the pressure anymore and fainted on the floor. If you really want to know what happens, go ask Rias herself and leave me alone, he said. His voice sounded different. His voice sounded way more dangerous, and this made Grafia flinch. She knew that she couldn't risk to fight Issei and potentially bring out his juggernaut because she will be doomed if she did. She nodded in response and teleported away. Issei dropped his aura and started to breathe heavily. He looked behind him to see Chelsea unconscious. He walked towards her and picked her bridal style and carried her to her bedroom. He entered the room and placed her on the bed. He noticed that she was sweating a lot, so he kept the blanket up and opened the window slightly to let fresh air come in. He headed towards his room and went straight to bed. He decided to have a quick chat with his dragons. Hey, any idea why I acted so differently? He said in his mind, making both dragons think. Vritra decided to answer his question. It is your dragon instincts that made you act like you did. We dragons cherish our freedom, but your case can be a little bit different. You are a dragon of both me and Ddraig's power. But it is possible that you gained some similar traits of an evil dragon, Vritra said, making Issei shocked. Issei learned about the evil dragons when he was training and knew about how dangerous and savage they are. Don't worry, partner. We will make sure that you never become like one. But I recommend aura control and meditation because your friend fainted from just your aura. But if that was someone way weaker than her, then she would without a doubt would have died of your aura. Dragon formed seriously, making Issei nod. Very well. I think I will sleep now. Good night, he said, and closed his eyes and drifted into sleep. Good night, both dragons said, and cut of the mental ink. Woke the day after his stare down with Grafia. He opened his eyes to see that it is still early. He stood up and did some light stretches and basic exercises. When he was done, he changed in his training clothes and went for a jog. He started to think what Vritra told him. He gained some traits of an evil dragon. It was a terrifying thought. They were the most savage and most brutal of dragons, and they were equally as feared as the heavenly dragons. He continued his jogging until he felt someone watching him. He turned around to see a man wearing a black kimono sitting on a bench. He had black hair and golden bangs. Something was up about the guy, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Luckily, Ddraig knew who he was and he quickly informed his host. That is Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels. Don't even think about fighting him, he can beat you in less than 10 seconds in your strongest form. Ddraig informed his host, making him shocked and slightly afraid. What is the leader of the Fallen Angels doing in a town full of devils? Devils that are related to the Devil Kings nonetheless. Issei stopped his jogging and Azazel turned sound and looked at him. He gave Issei a small grin, making him nervous. No need to fear me, Dragon Devil Boy, he said, catching Issei off guard. You know who I am? He asked Azazel, who stood up and nodded. Yes and no. I know that you're a devil and the Red Dragon Emperor, but I don't know who you are, he simply said, making Issei gulp. I am Issei Haida, pawn of Rios Gremry, he stated. Well, he hated to say that I could help him in some ways than others. I see then, Issei, I am Azazel, but I assume your dragon Ddraig already told you that, he said, making Issei nod. Azazel took a step closer, making Issei take a step backwards. Azazel noticed this and decided to melt the ice. No need to be so guarded. I came here to check on some matters, he said, making Issei confused. What matters? He asked Azazel, who gave him a small smirk. One of mine's subordinates stole a sacred gear that I collected and brought it here. Now that we talk about my subordinates, are not a couple of mine responsible for killing you and that nun girl? He asked Issei, who gritted his teeth and started to release his aura. Azazel was not afraid, but something was off about his aura and he knew exactly what it is. Smirking, he raised his hand, making Issei look at him. His eyes were now of a dragon that made Azazel flinch for a second. Yeah. What about them? He said with a venom, making Azazel understand that this is not a subject to play with. He made a serious face and snapped his fingers and a magic circle appeared and out of it came a box. Issei raised an eyebrow at his action and said nothing. Here are the last 3 of Vritra pieces I have in my possession. Take this as an apology for what my subordinates have done to you, he said, and places the box on the floor and took a step backwards. Issei didn't like the idea that Azazel is trying to make it up to him by giving some sacred gears. Giving me some gears is not making me feel any better for what your faction has done to you for Asia, he said with anger. Azazel sighed and understood that this is not a situation where you can forgive and forget. I know, and I will do whatever is in my power to make it up to you. In that box are notes on how to use these gears, and I putted a paper with my number if you need my help with the gears, he said. He bowed and teleported away. Issei looked at the box and picked it up. He teleported home and placed the box under his bed. Afterwards he looked at the clock and noticed that school is about to start. He quickly changed and sprinted to school. He made it in time and sat on his desk. The teacher entered the class and said, Class, today we have a new student. Please welcome her with open arms. You can come in now, the teacher said, and almost immediately the door opened, revealing Chelsea in the girl's uniform. The boys were drooling and the girls were whispering among themselves about Chelsea, but luckily the teacher made them quiet. Chelsea started to write something on the board that caught everyone off guard, including Issei and Rainer. It said, Chelsea Heidu. Hello everyone, I am Chelsea Heidu, and yes, I am related to Issei over there. He is my older twin brother, she said, and pointed to Issei, whose jaw has dropped on his desk. The dragons inside him were laughing so hard that Issei could hear them choking on their laughter. Everyone looked at him shocked, and before anyone could say anything the perverted duo spoke. Issei, I never knew you had a banging hot sister, the boldly said, making Issei grew a thick mark, and he grabbed him by the collar and said, I warn you, make any move or peek at her once I rip of what makes you a man. Are we understood? He said with a low voice, making the class shock at Issei's threat. The perverts nodded furiously and looked away. Chelsea smiled at this. She was happy that Issei will protect her. Very well, Miss Heidu, you can sit next to your brother, the teacher said, making Chelsea nod, and sat next to Issei, who had a fake smile on. After class ended, Issei went to the roof of the school, waited for Chelsea to appear. She, on the other hand, hot bombarded with questions. Boys wanted to date her, but she refused every request. Girls questioned on how she lived with a pervert like Heidu. Luckily, she said that she lived overseas for a couple of years. When she finally made it, she saw Issei leaning on the metal fence with his arms crossed. "Nice little show you made. You know that the devils will keep a close eye on you," he said, making her nod. "I now on each hand, and don't worry. I am trained assassin and I can camouflage myself to hide or run away, so it is fine," she said, making Issei nod. They ate lunch and talked with each other. When they were done, the door of the roof opened, revealing Rias and her peerage. They saw Issei and Chelsea sitting next to each other. Rias narrowed her eyes and said, "Issei, I never knew you had a sister," she said, making Chelsea smirk. "Yeah, she is my sister." He turned to her and said, "Hey, sis, can you leave Ava alone for a sec?" he asked. She nodded and walked past the Gremry peerage. When the door closed, Rias turned to Issei, who looked at them bored. She started talking. "Issei, later today we will go to the mountains for a training trip. So I expect you to be at the club room after school," she said with authority, making Issei or raise an eyebrow and nodded. He could use the training trip as an excuse to train and maybe test Chelsea's strength. "Sure," he said, uninterested, making the peerage surprised at his answer. "Very well then. By the why you never told us about that you have a sister?" she asked, making Issei look at her. "I never saw a reason to," he answered, and he stood straight and looked at them with his dragonic eyes, making all of them flinch. "I will say this, Gremry, if you dare to lay a finger on her I will obliterate without a second thought. Are we understood?" he said, and released his aura of domination, but unlike the previous time he released less than before, making them sweat, and Rias nodded and quickly walked in the building with her peerage. "You can come out, sis," he said, and a second later the door opened and Chelsea came out. Her cheeks were a bit pink, and she as well was sweating. "Well, that conversation went quick," she said while hiding her arousal, but it failed because of the saved dragon's senses. He smirked at her but decided to do nothing. "Hey sis, do you want to come with me to the mountains train?" he asked her, making her think. "Nah, that will draw too much attention," she said, making nod, and the rest of the school day went along fine. When arrived at the clubhouse, he brought a bag with extra clothes and food with him. They teleported at the bottom of the mountain. Rias ordered her peerage to walk up the mountain as exercise. They did, and was first to make it, and we not tired at all. The second was Kaneko, who was a little bit tired. The rest came along, and they were all tired, making Issei's sweat drop. He turned around and unfolded his devil wings and was about to fly away, but Rias stopped him. "Wait, Issei, where are you going?" she asked, making Issei look at her. "To the mountains to train. Don't disturb me or else I won't hesitate," he said, and flew away, leaving the pirate shocked behind. But luckily Rainer too told them they don't have time to waste, and started training. Peabod decided to focus on his defenses. He trusted that his speed is enough to give him the advantage. So he worked on his defenses to fill that gap. And Echo worked on her speed. She decided to put on some weight jacket on her body and trying to increase her speed with it. Rainer worked on her magic reserve. She knew she had the advantage because she is a fallen angel, and increasing her power will give her advantage against other devils. Vikendo worked on her magic reserve and trying to get more elements in her arsenal. She also knew that they had a disadvantage against Riser and his peerage, and she was nervous about it. Rias decided to learn more tactics and strategies. She was confident with her use of the power of destruction. With the Issei landed on the mountain far away from them. After he placed his bags to the side, he asked his dragons, "So what is on the agenda?" he asked out loud, not caring if anybody could hear him, not like anybody could. "Vritra and I will learn you a fusion techniques that we have created. The first one we called Crimson Curse Field. It acts as a barrier that prevents people from getting out, and it slowly weakens them with the pressure of the flames and the absorption effect. Also, it negates magical circles so nobody can teleport out of it," Ddraig said, making Issei nod. "And I will teach you a ranking black magic spell called Extinction Ray. It fires a beam of very concentrated destructive magic that makes everything what it make contact with into atoms," said Vritra, making nod. When became a dragon, he became very talented in the black arts of magic. "Very well then," he said, and prepared for the next 9 days of training. 9 days later. The 9 days went well for Ace. He was able to perform the technique in the February 1st days and mastered it on 8th. He also learned on how to use the spell on the 6th day, but it takes a lot of his reserve to use it. Now while he's standing in the clue room against the wall, the other members were doing their usual thing. Kiba reading a novel while drinking tea, Kaneko and Reina eating snacks. Akino standing close to Rias while she was sitting on her chair. After a minute, Issei gave his dragons the cue to knock him out. After a sharp pain, his body suddenly fell on the floor, shocking the other members of the Occult Research Club. They rushed to see what has happened, and unfortunately this was the scene that Grafia teleported into too. Rias-sama, what has happened to your pawn? She asked in her stoic voice. I don't know, Grafia. Everything was fine, but he suddenly collapsed. His reserves are almost empty, Rias said, but suddenly the boosted gear appeared on his left hand, and the voice of Ddraig was heard. No need to worry, sister and the Queen of Lucifer. My host mentally achieved the next stage of his sacred gear. This forced him to use all his magical reserve, forcing him to fall in a minor coma. Ddraig explained, but that was a lie. The truth was that Vritra absorbed all of the same magic reserve and forced him to lose consciousness. How long shall he be unconscious, Ddraig-sama? Grafia asked respectfully. She found this very suspicious and knew something was not right. But she has no way to prove it. 3 days minimum, Ddraig said, making Rias grow face of horror. Issei was her trump card and she was confident with Issei she would win. She turned to Grafia with a desperate face and said, Grafia, is it possible to move the day of the raiding game? She asked in her desperate face, but to her horror, Grafia nodded negatively. No, Rias-sama, the elders want to fight today, she said, making Rias nod in acceptance. Grafia teleported Issei to his home and placed his in his bed. Chelsea was already sleeping, so she didn't know about it. Grafia then returned to the Orc and teleported them to the arena. 3 days later. 3 days has passed after the raiding game between Rias and Riser, and the result is Rias forfeited the game to Riser. The day is the day of the marriage, and Issei was still asleep in his bed with Grafia sitting next to his bed. She was currently reading a book in peace. She heard sound coming from his bed and saw that Issei is about to wake up. She putted the book away and waited patiently for the Red Dragon Emperor to wake up. Issei woke up with a headache. He wasn't aware that Grafia was watching him. Issei moved his head to his left, seeing the silver-haired maid sitting on a chair. She still wore her maid attire and with her normal stoic face. Issei was slightly taken by surprise but remained calm. What are you doing here? He asks her with a disinterested voice, making the silver-haired maid sign. I came here to inform you about the raiding game. Rias lost the game, but I don't think he really cares, do you? She asks him with a knowing smirk. What gave it away? He said mockingly. He knew that his secret was out but was interested what will happen next. Our first encounter was when you were releasing your aura to Lady Rias in an intimidating manner. Second, that you conveniently fell unconscious right before the game were to begin. It wouldn't be impossible for you to ask Ddraig-sama to force you into a light coma and make a lie about it, she said with a smirk of victory. Issei was impressed that she discovered it so quickly. So what are you gonna do about it? He said, bored. He couldn't care less, and if someone tries to do something with his family, he would not think twice to even go to the Juggernaut Drive to protect his family. I want to know why you hate your master. The Grimaries are famous to treat their servants like family. So why are you so angry at Lady Rias? She asks him. After the last time they talked, Grafia went to Rias and asked her about her pawn, and why he is disobeying her orders. Rias lied to her and said that Issei is not used to be a servant and needs more time. When went on his 80 training camp, Rias went to her family and revealed that she has the Red Dragon Emperor in her peerage. This shocked most of them, and they asked on how she did it. She said that she founded him in the same school where she and Sona are going to and asked him to join her peerage, and he accepted it. I have my reasons, he said, emotionless, making them aid sign into satisfaction. She wanted answers and isn't planning on giving them. Grafia stood up and sat next to him on the bed, making him suspicious. Issei, I don't want you as an enemy. Please tell me what is the matter. What has Rias done to make you so angry? She said in a soft tone, making Issei look at her. He stared straight into her silver eyes that gave her a slight shiver, but she was determined to get an answer. Issei knew that he couldn't keep it for much longer and decided to tell her. She let me die by the hands of my first girlfriend that was sent to kill me, he said, emotionless, making Graffia's eyes widen in shock. She knew Rias was spoiled, but this was going too far. What? She asked, completely losing her composure. You heard me correctly. She let me die on my date with my girlfriend, who was a fallen angel sent to kill me because I wielded a sacred gear. Rias knew about the fallen in her territory and knew about their plans. So she let the fallen angel do her mission and revived me into her servant. She gave me a summoning circle before my date began, so that is further proof, he said while not looking Graffia in the eyes. He was trying to contain his anger. Luckily, because of his training, he leaned on how to contain his emotions. Graffia had a face of horror. They were lucky that Issei didn't go juggernaut dry because of it. She also understood why Issei hated Rias and refused to help her. She wouldn't blame him for it. She looked back at Issei, who had still his emotionless face on. That face looked almost identical to her younger sister, Issei, who was desolated. Graffia suddenly got an idea, but she knew that this is a risky move, but the rewards is worth it if this works. Issei, what would you do if I told you that there is one person that is in similar pain that you are in? That the person is so emotionally in chaos that it nearly sent her to insanity? Graffia softly asked to Issei, trying to see what would be his reaction to her question. Issei, hearing that, immediately answered her without thinking. He was that kind of the guy. He would always help anyone in need without question. I would do whatever it takes to help that person. When Graffia heard his reply, causing her to smile at him, Issei, I am going to tell you a story about that person, and I hope that you would truly help her since she desperately needs it. Nodding his head, Graffia started speaking. What I'm about to tell you is the story about my little sister, and what made her almost go insane. No one knows about it, and I hope you will keep what I tell you to yourself. Graffia told him in a serious tone that made clear to him that if word about her got out, he would be in unimaginable pain. Issei gulped a little hearing her tone, but he nevertheless nodded, which made Graffia smile again. Well, this all happened during the Devil's Civil War. Flashback. It was moments before the final battle of the war. Both sides were gathering their troops in position for the showdown that would finally end this needless bloodshed and bring peace to the realm of the devils. On one side of the battlefield was the old Satan faction, which was led by descendants of the original Mouse, and on the opposing side was the anti-Satan faction led by the strongest devils alive. The location for the battle was none other than the capital of the devils, Lilith. As the battle started, both sides pushed for supremacy in both land and air. The casualties were horrendous, so much so that even the largest battle in human history, the Battle of Stalingrad, was like a skirmish in comparison. Millions upon millions dead on both sides. During the Battle of Lilith, as it was called, two siblings were fighting against two other people. One of the two that the siblings fought was none other than their older sister, Graffia, while the other was a red-haired man that looked to be in his late 20s. Graffia, I didn't know that you could fall so low that you sided with the traitors. Do we mean anything to you, big sis? One of the siblings asked. He was a tall, handsome-looking youth in his early 20s with long silver hair that went to a ponytail and red eyes. He was wearing a silver suit with some accessories. That's not true, you could. I realized that if the descendants win, there wouldn't be any of us anymore. They will make the devils go extinct, and that is one thing I don't want, dear brother. Graffia replied as she blocked an attack from the other sibling that was a girl that looked like she was in her late teen years. She had long blue hair and blue eyes. She wore a general outfit with a matching cap. She was holding a rapier, and she had a furious expression on her face. That doesn't matter, big sis. Our clan gave full loyalty to Lucifer and his clan, and you side with the enemy of his. That makes you our enemy now. The girl told Graffia as she attacked her again, only for the red-haired man to block it. Now, Asdith, I thought that you are smarter than this. The red-haired man told the girl. You, Sirzex, shut up. If it wasn't for you, both my brother and I wouldn't have to battle our own sister. Asdith yelled as she started bombarding the duo with all she had in her. All of her rage went into her attacks that consisted of ice, her most powerful element. While she was younger than Graffia, Esdeath was a prodigy in the field of ice magic to the point she outclassed Graphia. The only reason Graphia is stronger is because she way older and have more battle experiences. The attack caught both Graphia and Sergiches by surprise. They knew that Esdeath was powerful, and to take her down, they would need a bit more power than any ordinary high-class devil. They both put their strongest barriers up to block her bombardment as it was going on. Each hit on the barrier made a small crack in it. Thankfully to both members of the anti-Satan faction, the relentless attack stopped before it could break through their defense. While the attack left Lucy exhausted for overusing her magic powers, quickly using her exhausted state, Sergicis sent his attack at her, hoping to put her out of commission and then battle Euclid without worrying about Estede. But to both Graphia's and Estede's shock, Euclid positioned himself in front of Estede and took the attack head-on, which caused a huge explosion to erupt where he stood that sent Esdeath flying back a good 20 meters. As the debris was clearing, it left the two girls in horror. Where Euclid stood now was only a 10-meter-wide crater with no trace of Euclid to be found, as if he never existed. Seeing that, Graphia started crying as Aztai stood there shocked to the core. With the loss of her big brother, she was left broken and just surrendered with no will to fight anymore. Flashback end. After that battle, Aztai was imprisoned as a prisoner of war. Though a few months later she was released, but she is still unwilling to do anything, and she is almost always locked in our cleansed estate where she rarely leaves it. She is now like a shell, all life left her that day. Gracia finished her story with a sad. Issei just listened to the story and was shocked at what he heard. He couldn't even imagine how it must have been for both girls to see their brother get killed in front of them. Is there any way to help your sister come out of her shell? He softly asked her, making Gracia's eyes widen at his question. I honestly don't know, Say. I hope there is, she replied. What would you say, Graphia, if I could help your sister? Would you help me get free from Rias? He questioned, turning around to look at the mate of the gremmery. The look of determination in his eyes gave her hope that he just might be able to help her. Without hesitation, she nodded with a smile. You have my word that I would support and help you in any way I can. That answer made his Say smile. Very well then. Graphia, I want to make a deal with you. If I help Rias out of her engagement, and I help your sister out of her shell, then would you help me to get out of Rias' gremmery peerage? Do we have a deal? He asked, making the maid nodded furiously. She knew Issei was miles stronger than Rias. Perhaps even stronger than Ezedith. You have a deal, I say, Heidu. Here, take this leaflet, and crash the engagement party. It is going to start in less than an hour, so be prepared, she said with a smile while handing him the leaflet and teleported away. Right on cue, the door opened, revealing Chelsea, who was in her nightgown. Hey, Issei-san, I overheard your conversation with Graphia. Are you really going to help the redhead? He asked Issei, who was picking up some clothes. Without turning around, he said, I am not helping her. I am helping myself and someone who also needs help. By the way, what have you been doing the last days? He said, and asked Chelsea, who shrugged and sat on his bed. I decided to befriend the girls of the Kendo Club. Murayama and Caddis. We get along very well, and I have been trying to raise their opinion of you more in a positive way. By the way, who knew that the Red Dragon Emperor peeks on girls when they are changing? She said, making Issei blush embarrassed. That was before I became a devil and started training. Now I have learned on how to control my perversion, he said, making Chelsea nod. They noticed the change in your personality, and even asked me about it. I said that you went through some hard times and decided to change. They accepted my answer, she said, making Issei nod. Very well then. I appreciate the kind gesture, but now I have a wedding to crash, he said, and Chelsea nodded and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, making him blush a bit. She left the room, leaving Issei alone, and he soon changed in some new clothes. He wore a dark red t-shirt and black jeans with a chain. He also wore black biker boots with a matching leather jacket. He looked in the mirror and smiled in satisfaction. He took the leaflet and channeled his magic into it, and second later he vanished. Phoenix territory. Issei teleported in front of the Phoenix Castle. He had to admit that the mansion was massive. He walked to the guards, who raised their spears at him. Halt! Who goes there? The guards said, and Issei handed him the leaflet. I was invited by Search for Lucifer himself to attend this marriage, he said, making the guards take the leaflet and read it, and after a hot second, they nodded and moved their spears. Very well, you may enter. Have a nice day, the guard said, making nod. Yes, I am gonna have a nice day pummeling that chicken to the ground, he said mentally to himself, making the dragons nod in excitement. Inside the Phoenix Castle. In the party room of the Phoenix Castle were many noble devils dancing and enjoying the food. Rias was backstage in her wedding dress, while her peerage were sitting by a table feeling disappointed they lost. On the other table were Riser Phoenix peerage members who were proud of themselves, especially Ravel Phoenix. They were all brought out of their action. They heard Riser cough loudly. Ladies and gentlemen, Riser is proud to announce that the time has arrived for the marriage to be finalized, he said in the third person, making everybody sweat drop. Riser continued. Riser is proud to showcase his beautiful so-to-be wife Rias Gremory, he said in gesture to the podium that revealed Rias Gremory in her wedding dress. She tried to hold her tears and hope that someone will stop this wedding. After a short guy, Lord Phoenix. Thanks for watching, and to someone has an objection against the union, please speak up, Lord Phoenix said, and nobody said anything. Ria's peerage were held back by the guards ordered by Riser so that no one can stop this wedding. But to everybody's shock was when they heard a voice. Objection, said the voice from the other side of the room. Everybody turned around and suddenly the door exploded and several guards flew out of it. Everybody was shocked. When the smoke of the explosion started to disappear, a black fog surrounded the door, and the only thing they could see are a pair of green and violet eyes shining brilliantly. Everybody suddenly felt that the temperature of the room started to increase, making the guests sweat a bit. Who are you and how dare you interrupt my wedding? Riser said with anger. Issei simply smirked, said, I am Issei Haidu, pawn of Rias Gremory and also the Red Dragon Emperor, he said, and whispered started to come from the crowd. Guard, seize him, he ordered, and the guards came closer to Issei, who simply raised him, or a bit. That was enough to send the guards flying in different directions. But before more people got hurt, Sergiches and Grafia appeared. Riser, is this your doing? Asked a guest. Luckily, Sergiches answered for him. This is something I set up. We don't have a union like this every day, so I wanted to have a little more flair in this wedding, so that is why I invited Issei, he said, and turned around and faced Issei. So what is what you desire if you win? He asked, making many guests shocked. Lucifer-sama, you cannot give a reward. A guest said. I invited him, so it is natural for him to receive a reward, he said, making the guests silent. He turned to Issei, who was standing without a care in the world. So what will it be? He asks, making Issei shrug and the people's sweat drop. The same bets as in the rating game, he said, making Sergiches smile and nod. But before he could teleport, another voice was heard, gathering the attention from the people present. Lucifer-sama, I have a better idea. Why not let me fight the pawn of Rias Gremory? It would prove more entertaining, that I can assure, said the voice. Issei turned around and saw older-looking version of Riser, but unlike him, he gave a feeling of a true noble. That sound like a good idea? What do you think, Issei? Do you want to fight Drivel Phoenix? He asks, and Issei shrugged. Sure, if the same bets are placed, then I am in, he said nonchalantly, making the audience sweat drop at his nonchalantness. Sergiches nodded and teleported them into a battle arena for everybody to watch. That's it, guys. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.